Hi, and welcome to the second in a series of the Shane Plays reviews of IDW's Revolution series and tie-ins. That it's basically bringing all of the Hasbro properties that IDW is working on in one big crossover event and establishing them in their one big unified storytelling universe, which of course is the big rage these days. So what we're going to review in this video is Revolution 2 and that was Revolution 2 I just held up. And then so 2, oh that was Revolution 3. So 2, 3, and then we're going to also talk about Revolution Action Man number 1, a little one shot, and also Revolution Transformers number 1, the one shot there. So which was very enjoyable. So, okay, so backing up, one thing I want to talk about that I like about what IDW does with its comic books in general, and then also what they're definitely doing with Revolution, is at the beginning of each issue, right? They show you the dramatis persona, if you will, from G.I. Joe, Transformers, ROM, M.A.S.K, Mobile Armored Strike Command, all that. Kind of gives you a headshot and a name of who the main players are from each faction. That's nice. Also, they have a title page right at the beginning. They don't make you, like a lot of comic books now, you don't know, they're putting the title page at the end of the comic, at the beginning, 5 pages in, as a sort of dramatic impact, I guess. It's kind of a pain for me. I hate hunting for that, to see all the title stuff. So I like that IDW does that with these books. And then a lot of IDW books also, they have a previously page, which is kind of like a last time on, and instead of a wall of text telling you, it actually takes different panels with speech balloons and everything from the previous comic or comics that kind of hit the high points to let you know kind of what you're dealing with. So I like that. That's one thing I like that IDW is doing. Another thing that's really cool that they're starting to do with these Revolution comics is in the back they're giving you these sort of, Marvel Universe style entries on major characters. In issue 2 you get ROM, General Joe Colton, Scarlet, Blitzwing, and they're very much in the style. And then Action Man, whoop, there you go. They're very much in the style of the old Marvel Universe. Was it Guide to the Marvel Universe? I know DC had Who's Who, and then Marvel had the I guess the Guide to the Marvel Universe, A to Z or whatever. I loved those back in the 80s. Those multiple issue runs that was like an encyclopedia of all their characters. And then on the back cover, or on the inside back cover, which I really like, IDW comics a lot of times, somewhere in the comic will show you all the variant covers, which is very helpful to me. I'm not a big fan of variant covers because I don't like to pre-order everything. I don't like to have everything on a pull list. I enjoy cruising the shelves at my comic book shop. Oh, and have and then being surprised by what's there, and grabbing that. And these multiple covers can sometimes make stuff hard to know. Do I already have this? Or there's been times where I've picked up my pull list and I haven't read anything from my previous visit, or everything from my previous visit to the comic book shop, and I'm like, do I have this already? I really don't like the variant cover craze. I mean, I guess it's good for the industry if it helps sell more books, but if you're selling books because of extra covers for collectability and not because of the quality of the storytelling, and by storytelling I mean all of it, the writing, the art, the coloring, pencils, inks, all of it, editing, all of it, if it's not the quality of the book that's selling, the variant cover thing just bugs me. I'll just be honest. And I grew up on comic books, and so it's a fairly new phenomenon. I know it's been going on for years. I just don't like it. So, but at least they make it easy to know which cover is what. I mean, look at this, 8 different covers for one issue of a comic book. That's crazy to me. But there's literally times, like I'll pick up a Marvel or a DC book or whatever, and I'll flip to the title page and it'll say cover by so-and-so, and then it'll say variant cover by whoever. And then I'll look on the cover and I have to go who, and I'm hoping that the artist put their signature so I can even figure out which cover I'm getting, because I usually like to get the standard cover. Now, every now and then a variant cover, I'll be like, oh, that's sweet, but I'm not buying multiple issues of one book just to get the different covers. Okay, so one last thing I want to mention about Revolution that I'm still disappointed about is, you see this checklist of when everything's coming out, and as with my previous video, with this video as well, they don't seem to be delivering the books by the checklist. And, for somebody like me who, I'm not going to read all of IDW's books. I'm not reading all of this and that. I'm like, I want to get the Revolution stuff. Now, I'm reading Transformers as a matter of course, and I'm reading ROM currently, but all this other stuff I'm not reading. The only time I want to buy it is, if it's part of this checklist to read the whole Revolution event. And, here it's got Revolution number 3, and then G.I. Joe Revolution, and then Transformers till R1 Revolution, and then Transformers Revolution and Action Man Revolution are supposed to come out after Revolution number 4. Well, I've got in my hands Action Man and Transformers till All Are One had not come out yet. Now I've bought it, I haven't read it yet, but it came out of order, and G.I. Joe Revolution number 1 still hasn't shown up. So as with my previous video, I don't understand, like, if you do a checklist and you say this is when stuff's going to come out in certain orders, why can't you do that? I was interviewing a comic book veteran on my radio show who'd been, had worked with M.A.S.K for years and years. He was an inker, John Beatty, and he basically said, man, back in the day, if you didn't deliver on time, you got fired. But comic books these days are, it's late. It didn't ship on time. I mean, I understand it's art on a certain level, but it's also business. It's professional. Get the stuff out when you say you're going to get it out. I understand that comic books and movies and all that stuff are cool, but it's not the Sistine Chapel. If you say you're going to deliver on time, be professional and deliver. If you can't deliver stuff on time, don't say I can deliver. Now, I'm not talking about the rare circumstance that comes up. I'm talking about artists and writers and all that habitually deliver late. And they're out there. We know who they are. I mean, I could think off the top of my head when Brian Hitch was doing the art on Justice League before Rebirth happened. Man, that book was chronically late. Dark Knight 3, Master Race seems to be chronically late a lot. Just somebody deliver the book. I don't get it. Especially back in the day, like in the 80s and probably the 90s, books just shipped on time. It was business, and we still got cool artistic stuff, but it shipped on time. So, IDW, maybe this is new for you to be doing this multi-property crossover thing, and, coordinating all the moving parts is hard, but as your customer, I don't care how hard it is. You said you were going to do it, so I expect these books to come out by when you say they're going to come out. And a matter of fact, it was either Revolution 2 or 3, I think it may have been 3, one of the Transformers makes a remark about or 13 or something else, and it says, asterisk, go see Transformers till All Are One shot number 1, which by the checklist should have already been out, but it's not out. So I'm like, what? So that stuff just bugs me. Personal pet peeve. Maybe a lot of people don't care. So anyway, now to the books themselves. So for Revolution number 2 and Revolution number 3, I really enjoyed them both. I really like the art FICO Osseo, I think his name is. I really like his art a lot. Like, I don't know, that Optimus Prime there. I just like how he's drawing stuff and the little details he puts on everything. I like his style a lot. I really like how he draws the Transformers. Basically, this 2 and 3, Revolution 2 and 3 tell the story of basically the Transformers chasing Rom down and them getting into a skirmish, but basically they finally drop Rom because Rom's tough, but he's only one guy or one Space Knight, and there's a whole bunch of Transformers ganging up on him, and you know, an Optimus Prime literally transforms into a truck and uh, and knocks him on his butt. You know, after Rom gets a few good licks in, and if you'll remember from Revolution #1, basically Rom showed up while the Transformers were fighting G.I. Joe, blasted several G.I. Joe members and killed them and flew off. And what Transformers and G.I. Joe didn't know is that they were dire wraiths. They weren't humans, but they were masquerading as G.I. Joe members. But Transformers were getting blamed for it, and they knew that, so they're like, we got to chase this guy down and see what's going on. So you got that subplot going on of the Transformers first fighting and then kind of talking with Rom, and Rom knows, he's like, you're Cybertronians, I know who you are, and they end up, you know, kind of talking, and there's a lot of stuff going on. One of the unifying things that's going on here is Ore 13, because which is this crystal, and Ore 13 can be used by the Transformers for energy. It can be used by the dire wraiths as a way to shield themselves from Rom's analyzer. For the first time he's fighting dire wraiths ever. He's like, my analyzer doesn't detect them, and it's because of Ore 13. And then G.I. Joe is also, you know, kind of they think that the Transformers are using Ore 13 purposefully to blow stuff up. But in reality, spoilers. All of these review videos have spoilers. What's really happening is that in the microverse, I think his name is Baron Karza, if I remember that. I think that's his big bad name. He's the Micronauts villain. Yeah, Baron Karza is pulling Ore 13 into the microverse because he can use it to fight this entropy cloud thing, and that sometimes causes stuff to blow up. So there's all this interconnected stuff. And then M.A.S.K, the Mobile Armored Strike Command, is Miles Mayhem, General Mannheim, who's actually a bad guy, but people think he's a good guy. Yeah, it's comic books, big soap opera. He developed the M.A.S.K vehicles and technology, the M.A.S.K technology, using Cybertronian technology that he's been taking from a captured Transformer who's in like a lot of pain, and they're basically torturing. So, and then Action Man is infiltrating the G.I. Joe stronghold for his own reasons, and he meets up with Cup, who's been captured, who's a Transformer, and there's all this stuff going on, and it's a lot of fun. And then in the middle of all this, M.A.S.K is starting to separate into M.A.S.K and Venom, where you got the good guys as M.A.S.K and the bad guys as Venom, but they have these crazy masks that do stuff and transforming vehicles based on Cybertronian technology. And then you have the Micronauts, who have discovered this big, huge robot in the microverse, who's Micronus Prime, who's one of the Primes who left this reality. Hey, one of the lost Primes from the Transformers, well, he's in the microverse. All this crazy stuff going together. And it sounds overly complicated, but for the most part, it's a lot of fun. So you got G.I. Joe figuring out that, hey, these Joes that were killed by Rom weren't human. You got Action Man in the middle of it. You've got Rom somehow figuring out that his armor can control Ore 13. And so there's this moment with this big space bridge in between our world and the microverse. He's flinging Ore 13 through the space bridge, and it's exploding in the microverse. And he realizes if he does enough of this, he'll destroy the microverse, and that will take care of this the Or-13 on Earth blowing up. Everyone's worried about the entire Earth blowing up. So he's like, hey, I'll wipe out whoever's on the other side of the gate, and that saves the world. And it keeps the dire rays from getting Or-13 so that to protect them from me detecting them and killing them. So there's all this intertwined stuff going on. And then, like I said, you got Action Man breaking into the G.I. Joe headquarters, and then he's talking to Mainframe, who is a G.I. Joe, that they have, a relationship, like, hey, I need your help, and da-da-da. And then the Joes don't even know that there's captured Transformers in their headquarters because Miles Mayhem has been keeping that from them. I think only Scarlet knows. So there's all this crazy stuff going on. And quite frankly, it's just a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. I mean, I'm not going to keep reading every book after Revolution, but this is a fun event. Take all these characters, from all these great Hasbro properties and mix them together. And, it ends, 3 ends. It's Blitzwing. He's the captured Cybertronian that Miles Mayhem is in Blitzwing just keeps begging for death. And they establish very clearly in these books that the M.A.S.K team in vehicles, especially ganged up on 1 or 2 Transformers, can take a Transformer out. I mean, they beat Kup. And they could have killed Kup, the Transformer Kup KUP, but they decided to, we'll keep him for further study. We can use his parts and stuff like that. So, so there's just a lot of really fun stuff going on. And issue 3 ends with what I was telling you. Rom was like figuring out that he could throw Or-13 through the space bridge, and the Transformers are like, don't do this, you'll wipe out that other universe or whatever. And Rom's like, I don't care, it means this Earth is protected, or this planet's protected from the dire rays, but then Rom finally says, okay, I can't do that, and he has like a moment of crisis and then does the right thing. So at this point, him and the Transformers are kind of allying up. Now, the Micronauts end up coming into our world through the space bridge, and they're flying around. They're like, what kind of crazy world we're in? It looks like a big mechanical world. Well, really, they're just in hallways or stuff. They don't realize they're in this world where everything's so much bigger. And it ends with them encountering Snake Eyes. There's their ship flying towards Snake Eyes. So that's where 3 ends, and that was a nice little place to end it. So I'm not telling you everything that's happening, but I'm giving you kind of an idea of all this stuff mixing together, and it really is a lot of fun. Like I said, I'm having fun with it. And they also seem to be setting up, from like the Action Man #1, they're setting up other books where they're going to have a book called Revolutionaries, and that's going to have like, it says the revolution may be over, but the future is only beginning. Revolutionaries #1. It looks like it's got Kup and Action Man and Rom and kind of a, it's got Kup, Action Man, Mayday, who's G.I. Joe, BlackRock is a Cybertronian, thinks he's human. There's a Cybertronian that looks like a person. And then Rom versus Major Blood and the October Guard. It just looks a lot of fun. So anyway, so let's go on to the one-shots here. Action Man was a heck of a lot of fun. It basically Action Man, who's the British version of G.I. Joe, back when they did G.I. Joe way back in the day, and they had the big dolls, before they were even called action figures, and then in the 80s they had the little G.I. Joe. The British version was Action Man, not G.I. Joe. So now they have this super spy called Action Man, and they know something and he has a team of people behind him, and there's something that's not quite right in G.I. Joe headquarters, so he breaks in, and he finds that there's these captured Cybertronians, and he finds Kup, who's been captured by Miles Mayhem from M.A.S.K/Venom, and they end up kind of forming a friendship, and he basically breaks Kup out and talks G.I. Joe into not killing Kup as they get away. And Miles Mayhem is like, why did you not kill Kup? And the Cybertronian it was a lot of fun. And what's strange to me is John Barber wrote this, And John Barber also writes a lot of other Transformers stuff, and he wrote. He's one of the co-writers on the main Revolution series. He writes a ton of Transformers books, and this style was very lighthearted and fun, and lots of little one-liners, and it just seemed different. So I guess John Barber is kind of showing the range of stuff he can do because it was quite different, quite lighthearted, quite a lot of fun, and it flowed very well. I enjoyed reading this a lot. This has probably been one of my favorite issues out of this Revolution series so far. And I'm looking forward. I don't know if John Barber is writing it or not, but I hope he's writing this Revolutionaries title that I was just talking about a while ago because I would enjoy it. So this was good. This was a lot of fun. I really, even if you're not going to read any of the Revolution stuff, I recommend Action Man #1. It's just a fun comic book. And it just the artwork was fun, and the story was fun, and the writing style was a lot of fun. And I like Action Man's character. I really like what they, how they presented him in this one shot. Finally, we had Transformers #1, which basically had, and I love what they've done. You've got Thundercracker, who's an ex-Decepticon, and they've established this in the currently ongoing Transformers books. And Thundercracker has a pet named Buster, who's actually a female dog. And Thundercracker and Buster are tight. So Thundercracker takes Buster everywhere with him that he goes. And then you had Marissa Fairborn, who's the ex-director of the Earth Defense Command, whose job to protect the Earth against Transformers is now being taken over by G.I. Joe. And you had the President of the United States, who is a woman in the IDW Hasbro universe. Basically, the Dire Wraiths attack the White House. And in the middle of all this, while trying to protect the president, Melissa Fairborn, who's there basically begging for her job, calls Thundercracker to come save them. And Thundercracker, who in his mind is a screenwriter, so the entire time he's on this defense mission, he's also writing dialogue for a script that kind of follows what's happening in what he's doing. So he's like fighting and talking, and then in his mind he's writing this script. Again, this is just a fun comic book, and there's some, and it's also written by John Barber, and there's some fun moments in here. There's also some pretty crazy stuff going on with the Dire Wraiths. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like funny one moment and kind of gruesome the next. And suffice it to say, Thundercracker and Buster and Melissa Fairborn save the day, save the president, and the White House gets trashed. So that's basically what happens here. The tie-in, there's not a lot of major story being revealed further with this tie-in, but it does have a lot of the major stuff that, showing that like the Secret Service has been infiltrated by the Dire Wraiths, and that, Melissa Fairborn, how does she stay relevant? Because the Earth Defense Command, it was like, you haven't been doing a really good job of defending us against the Transformers, because, hey, guess what? Optimus Prime is just basically annexed the Earth for the Cybertronian Councils of Worlds. That's what's going on in the ongoing Transformers comic books. But suddenly, Melissa Fairborn gets to show her stuff, and her relationship with Thundercracker. She has a good relationship with Thundercracker, and there's some good storytelling and a good humorous element in it as well. So those are the 4 books that we're reviewing in this series. Overall, like I said, I like what I'm seeing in Revolution. I don't think I'm going to end up being, a super shared Hasbro universe nerd, but I'll keep reading the Transformers, and I may read, keep reading ROM. I may pick up Action Man if I have the budget. I really enjoyed Action Man. But it's stuff like this, the fun, like Thundercracker and Buster the dog, and I want to be a screenwriter, and I just love stuff like that, and I like the dynamic between Action Man and Cup the Transformer, just some cool stuff. So I liked these, and again, we looked at Revolution #2, and then we looked at Revolution #3. And then we looked at Revolution Action Man one-shot, #1. And then Revolution Transformers one-shot #1. Now, so there's more Revolution to come. We're not done with the story yet. Probably have at least one more if not 2 more videos in this series. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate your comments or questions or your thumbs up on the video. That helps me a lot on YouTube. And then, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so already. And thanks so much for watching, Shane Plays.